Miami's offensive line is poised to dominate USF's undersized defense, potentially leading to a rushing clinic this Saturday.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We made it. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Hurricanes Radio Network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda, Move or Be Moved. On this loaded episode, we've got a couple of important recruiting notes, a class of 2027 quarterback who's going to be at the game, and an important 2026 wide receiver commit who is shutting down his recruitment. We'll talk about Carson Beck's rise as he's moving up the quarterback rankings and moving up the Heisman list. It's early, but it's interesting. And let's talk about Miami's advantages. But let's bring in the man who you're going to be seeing and hearing right after the game. And I surely hope this is a victory. We got Jim Grieshopper with us because, Gries, this is one of those games where, and I'm not going to discount USF based on what they've done so far this year, a couple of top 25 upsets. But I believe Miami has the advantage, at least a slight advantage, in every single matchup on the football field this weekend. But it's still about executing. It's about winning the turnover margin. It's about not shooting yourselves in the foot the way Florida did last week.
Yeah, and Florida was really good at shooting themselves in the foot last week. And South Florida's got a lot of speed, right? We know that. How do you make up when you're trying to recruit against the big boys in a state like Florida, and you have all the other schools coming down into Florida to raid it as well, and you get the big guys all get taken, right? So what's left? There's always going to be speed. And that's the thing about the USF defense. Now, their defensive line is one of the worst units in the country, literally ranked one of the worst units in the country. Now, could that be a result of playing Boise State? They obviously beat them 34-7, so not much of a problem there. And a result of playing Florida, I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. Those two teams, you look at Boise State and the way they like to run the ball, and you look at Florida and their offense, but that defensive line is undersized. And you can say all you want, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. That only gets you so far when you're staring across at guys who are 6'9", 300 plus, when you're staring across at guys that are, size-wise, 4 of those 5 on the Miami offensive line are NFL ready right now. So when you look at that size difference in these two units, you naturally think, okay, the Miami offensive line, it's going to be their size against the athleticism of South Florida's defensive line. But hold on a minute. Those big guys can move on the Miami side. Yeah. They're athletic as well. So I think this is the number one matchup in this game where Miami is completely superior and where most of the real top teams in college football, you can talk about USF making a playoff run and they're a good story, but the offensive line for Miami against the defensive line for USF, by the time the middle of the third quarter comes around, that defensive line should be hurting. They should be gassed. They should be beat up. A couple of them should be injured by then. You know what I mean? So that's what should happen. That the way that I see Miami imposing its will offensively through the offensive line. And I know Mario being a former offensive lineman, and you love Carson Beck. And I heard what you said about Beck in the Heisman race. And, you're tempted to just let him drop back every down and throw it because, if I were Mario and the coaches, I'd be like, thank God we got Carson Beck. Let me just sit back and watch this kid do his thing. And I think it's unfair, a lot of the criticism he took leaving Georgia, to be honest with you. I think he's shown already how good he is, missing the OTAs, everything. He just comes in and just lights it up, And that's pretty impressive to have the rapport that he has with the receivers and the command that he has of the offense, and not just the offense, the huddle, with all the time that he missed. And that's true leadership, right? And I think that's, hey, he's Carson Beck. He's coming from Georgia. We better listen to him. And there's a lot to that. But this offensive line that protects him, I mean, it's like trying to throw a football over the Great Wall of China. It's huge. And that's what USF is against. So Mario, I believe, and Shannon Dawson, very smart. I think we're going to get a heavy dose of all those running backs. We've seen a lot of Fletcher so far, and obviously we know him from last year and what he did behind Martinez. And then obviously Marty Brown coming in, the player of the year, and he comes to the big boys in the big time, and he has proven that he belongs here. So that tailback by committee in this game, I think, is going to be important because Miami's going to be up big late, and you're not going to want to get anybody hurt. But it's going to be because of the line of scrimmage, and 65% of that for me, Alex, is Miami's offensive line against USF's defensive front.
Yeah, physical offensive line and physical tailbacks as well. So those are going to be like the twofold.
Yeah, good point.
Miami
about
wants
the tailbacks.
that they want to wear down that USF defense, and that's when late in the game, because Miami's not going to abandon the run. They're not going to give up on it the way that Florida did for reasons I can't fully understand or explain. So yeah, when you have
like Florida,
yeah,
that's all the reason you need.
Huge size advantage for Miami at the offensive line, and then you've also got tailbacks at 225 in Mark Fletcher, 220 in Marty Brown, and Jordan Lyle is going to be back for this game after missing the majority of the Notre Dame game with the injury he picked up, missing Bethune-Cookman. From what I understand, like, he's fine, so I don't expect him to be like limited or anything. So I think Jordan Lyle is going to be a full go. And so here's what the numbers Gries say about USF's rushing defense versus Miami's rushing offense. Now, so far this season, like, USF's actual rushing defensive stat, like yardage given up, it's bang average at 66 in the country. Miami averages 166.5 rushing yards per game. But that's, keeping in mind their rushing yards against, keeping in mind that, Boise State was playing from behind and they don't have Ashton Genty anymore like they had last year. And Florida didn't run the football nearly enough given the success that they were having. So if you look at the Pro Football Focus grades for USF's rushing defense, they're 125th nationally in rushing defense and 126th in tackling so far this year. So this is an area Miami should be able to take advantage of, Gries, in pounding that rock.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, Alex, the physicality of the running backs. And sometimes Fletcher's one of those guys where you got to tell him, hey, you don't have to run into every defender. You can run around them too. You can spin, but you love the mindset of just going in there like a bulldozer and taking someone's head off. And I think the physicality of Miami's running game, actually, to be honest with you, I believe the physicality of Miami's running game separates and could separate the Hurricanes from just about every team in college football. I mean, you look at Ohio State maybe in a team like that, the physicality, but this is a very, very one of the most physical Miami offensive lines I've seen in a long time. Alex, we talked before the show, and I was talking about that 2000 to 05 era, when all those chips started cashing in from the Butch Davis days and all that great recruiting, and you had to have someone up front blocking for all those 3 deep future NFL stars, right? So those offensive lines, and we talk about the Ohio State Fiesta Bowl and how their defensive front had their way with our offensive line, but that was rare back then. So I asked you, is this our best offensive line since that 2000 to 05-ish range? And you said maybe yes. So I think
I don't think maybe. I think absolutely yes.
And not just the size, it's the physicality they play with too, right? They're mean up there. And I love the way Brockermeyer's just come in there. And we talked before the first game against Notre Dame, obviously baptism by fire against the front seven like the Irish. And, Bethune-Cookman's Bethune-Cookman. Obviously, you're going to kill them. But in that Notre Dame game, Brockermeyer did more than hold his own, man. I was really impressed with everything he did. And you know what goes into playing center, Alex, beyond just, blocking someone and snapping the ball. You're doing line calls. You're almost as tuned in as the quarterback is out there.
Yeah, and he and Beck have very good chemistry despite not being able to spend the full spring together with Beck being injured. And let's talk more about Carson Beck on the other side, because he has been, in terms of quarterback rankings and Heisman odds, Carson Beck has been the biggest riser. You want to keep it locked right here. We got the postcast king, Gries, with us, who remember is going to be on right after Miami hopefully beats USF on Saturday. We got Sebastian in the house and the American flag. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and keep moving the game forward. So for this week's moment that moved the game forward, I'm actually going to spotlight a true freshman player, one of the many talented freshmen on Miami's roster, who made a play that didn't necessarily define the outcome of either of these first two games so far. But I'm talking about true freshman safety Bryce Fitzgerald. If you want to look at the intensity that Miami's defense is looking to play with for 4 straight quarters, at this point, it was 42-3 Miami. The outcome of the game was not in doubt against Bethune-Cookman, but Corey Heatherman wanted his guys keeping the Wildcats out of the end zone at all costs. And Bryce Fitzgerald, who has a very bright future at Miami, makes an interception in the end zone to keep Bethune out of that touchdown. And they're still yet to score a touchdown this year. Those are the sort of plays you may not appreciate it now, but when you see Bryce Fitzgerald developing and becoming a bigger part of this defense, you're going to appreciate it later. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We got Gries with us, who's going to be on that postcast a little bit later on. And, you know, Gries, obviously, heading into week 3, you take Heisman Trophy odds with a grain of salt, but this is recognition for how well Carson Beck has been playing so far. And it's not just the yardage and the big throws he's made to C.J. Daniels and Malachi Toney and the 4 touchdowns. It's also 0 interceptions, 0 turnover-worthy throws per PFF so far. And the way Beck has been so efficient. And Carson Beck is actually, I'm looking at the FanDuel odds right now, Gries. He's moved up to 2nd in the country right now, behind only John Mateer at Oklahoma. And obviously OU just got a signature win against Michigan, the way Miami got a signature win against Notre Dame to open the season. So you got Mateer leading the pack at the moment at plus 900. And then Carson Beck and Dante Moore from Oregon. Moore is putting up video game numbers so far. Doesn't have a signature win yet, but Beck and Moore are tied for 2nd highest Heisman odds at plus 1,000. I mean, Gries, if you consider where the public narrative was on Beck before the season and where it is now, this guy is proving himself out there that he can get himself hopefully back into the first round of the NFL draft.
Yeah, and think about it, right? You win 2 titles in a row as the backup, and they're like, okay, here, it's yours. Go win more, right? And that's no matter what Carson Beck did after Stetson Bennett at Georgia. Think about that, man. Hey, here you go. Go win. It's we've seen these guys come through the University of Miami, like Gino Torretta and Ken Dorsey. And, you know, when you have a quarterback like that and you have success like that, and that's the expectation every year, no matter what, which makes what Nick Saban and his staff did at Alabama and his players even more absurd. And you have to take your hat off. But when I think about Beck and all those games in the SEC, not just as a starter, and he struggled and he had the injury and they didn't, play to expectations, but all the games he played, or all the games he watched Bennett play, all the big games they won, all that time he was the one holding the clipboard next to the head coach, all that he learned about playing quarterback, which is why I love it when guys sit behind established starters for a couple of years. And I think you've seen it in the NFL, even with Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, for example, Drew Brees, guys who didn't necessarily come in and become the man right away. And in many cases sat for a long time. So when I look at Beck, he's got all that experience as a starter, as a backup, as a red shirt. He's the OG in the locker room, right? Yeah. So obviously he walks in and he's going to have the attention of this team, but you still have to earn the respect. He's going to have the attention. They're going to be looking up saying, yeah, this guy should be a leader, but you still have to prove it day in and day out. Then he misses the spring. He's barely ready for the fall. And everybody in Caneland is going, man, Carson Beck's not really Carson Beck, and he doesn't have enough time. And I think the Notre Dame game proved everybody wrong there. And then obviously what he did against Bethune-Cookman is exactly what he should have done against Bethune-Cookman. But you said it before the show when we were talking. When you look at these receivers, Alex, and we knew we had some good ones coming in. You've been talking about them for a long time. We didn't know for sure. Canes fans hadn't seen it yet. But when you look at what C.J. Daniels and Malachi Toney have done so far this year, and you haven't even seen JoJo. Oh, my God, the country, they're not ready, Alex. They're not ready for JoJo. I'm just telling you, that this is absurd. You're talking Santana Moss, Reggie Wayne type stuff here. You really are. I mean, I think we're looking at a group that can be that good.
Well, and look at how good they're already doing. So Miami right now is the only team in America that has two receivers, a duo with over 80 grades so far on Pro Football Focus. CJ Daniels, who has 3 touchdown catches that were all difficult contested catches. I mean, the one that he made, the one-handed grab against Notre Dame, is one of the highlights of the season so far.
One of the
He's got
best
an
catches in Miami history.
Yes, sir. He's got an excellent 83.5 grade. And then Malachi Toney, who leads Miami in receiving so far in terms of reception yards, he was over 80 in both of the first 2 games, has an 83.1 grade. And then, like you mentioned, Gries, we're only scratching the surface 2 games in, because JoJo Trader, and we had a conversation a couple days ago with C2 Kaz Clayton, who has done some really good reporting on like the JoJo situation, like why he missed the game last week, which was something that actually had nothing to do with football. He was put into a protocol and he's fine. Like, so she doesn't expect him to be physically limited in any way for this game. And so I think JoJo can really start making himself a factor starting this week. Josh Moore is someone who's gotten a few catches so far this year, but hasn't been a big factor. He's a true freshman who I think will become a bigger factor as the season goes on. And Keelan Marion, same thing. Like, he's only got a few grabs so far, Gries, but he has started these first 2 games. Maybe he starts getting more looks. So, and not to mention Elijah Lofton, who I don't know for sure if he's physically 100% or what, but I think he's going to become a bigger part. So, my hope would be that, even though we've got 2 receivers who have absolutely been rocking and rolling so far, that we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg after these first 2 games.
Yeah, and when you look at the number of receivers who have caught passes this year, it really is amazing because you just keep feeding the beast. I think I'm reading it here. 14 different receivers have caught a pass this year for Carson Beck. And, obviously it's not all Beck, but he has been magnificent. Sure. The receivers are getting open. Tony's just a freshman. We haven't seen a lot of the tight end usage or running backs out of the backfield yet either, and they can do that. So as good as they've looked and as much as we've seen Beck spread that ball around, haven't seen – and people were talking about JoJo being the guy coming into the season, looking at him on the field over the summer. And, now you're coming in and he's got to say, okay, I got a chip on my shoulder now because look at what Tony and CJ have done. Let me get some, boys. And it becomes a friendly competition. And if you remember back to those days of Santana Moss and Reggie Wayne or Michael Irvin and Perriman and Blades and the groups of wideouts that we've had in the past, Lamar Thomas and Horace Copeland in that group, you just think back, and Kevin Williams, you just think back to how spoiled we've been. But dare I say it, Andre Johnson, one of the all-time greats as well. Dare I say it, that this group could be as good as any of them on the college level.
And all right, so looking at Miami's passing offense against USF's passing,
and they have a better
defense.
QB than any of those guys had. I said it. Better than Steve Walsh, better than Dorsey, better than Geno. I said it.
Yeah, and you know what? A lot of people bring up, the Dorsey comparisons to me, and I think a lot of it has to do with Carson Beck wearing that number 11, right? Of course, Ken Dorsey's resume is like, obviously Carson's going to have 1 season in Miami. Like, he's not going to match Ken Dorsey's resume. I get that, but he does have better arm talent, and Carson Beck is going to be a better NFL prospect than Dorsey was, who had a solid backup quarterback career, but that's what he was. Dorsey was a tremendous college quarterback and a perfect leader and a perfect distributor of the football, and so processed so well and got his teammates involved. Like, he was the perfect quarterback for that 2001 and 2002 team and 2000 team. They should have won 3 championships with that group, but he doesn't have the talent that Carson Beck has.
No, he didn't. And these receivers are, otherworldly special. So I know that's a tough act to follow with the names that I named that they have to live up to in that room. And I know they love that challenge and they take it every day. But I'm sorry, there's no comparison. And I know Geno won a Heisman and I know Dorsey won all those games. I know I'm going to get heat for this, but there is no comparison on Dorsey's best day to Carson Beck or Cam Ward for that matter. There's just not.
And so a USF against the pass so far this year, they allow 239 passing yards per game. That's 98th in America. Obviously, they've played better competition than a lot of teams in America. A lot of teams have played 1 cupcake, sometimes 2 cupcakes. So I get that. They do rank USF better in pass efficiency defense, which is probably a better metric than just passing yards given up. It's 62nd nationally, but that's average. Gries out of I think 135 FBS teams. So it's not as if like you mentioned, they have speed on defense. They have some talent on defense. I like their linebackers. Their defensive backs, I give credit to our guy DeMarcus Van Dyke, Coach DVD, former Kane assistant coach who coaches their DBs. As much as I love DVD, I want his group to take an L this week. You can win all the rest of your games if you want to, but hopefully Miami's receivers can do some work against.
And please do, by the way,
backs.
please keep winning after this game. Like every team we play has to keep winning. But when I look at this game, Alex, we haven't talked about the one guy who gives USF a chance, and to me, their defense is not bad, even though they're undersized, or I forget who used to say it, but a little too light in the ass to be talking to me like that. And that's how I kind of see it going into this game. But the USF offense has struggled to do anything consistently this year at all. They live on big plays and mistakes by their opponents. Boise State and Florida turning the ball over. This offense has not put together anything sustained so far this year, and they're not going to against Miami. So can you stop Byrum Brown from making big plays? To me, that's what it comes down to, is Corey Heatherman and Wesley Bassane against Byrum Brown.
Yeah, and Mo Torre as well. In fact, look, if you're really gonna spy him with somebody, Torre, Bobby Pruitt are options there, because you've got to be ready for that. And Byrum
I don't mean
Brown,
spy. I mean mind to mind.
Mind to mind, yeah.
Defense, just going chess match, wit for wit. And Heatherman's defense requires a lot out of their linebackers, and Bassane's the guy who's going to be looking at that defense and going, okay, I'm the leader, and he's calling the defense. And Brown has a lot of freedom on the field. So when I look at what USF is going to want to do, they thrive in that environment of a broken play. They thrive in that environment of a missed block, and all of a sudden there's a free pass rusher coming right at him, and he makes him miss, and next thing you know, it leads to a big run or a pass down the field. So when they thrive in that environment, Alex, it's always tough to deal with those crazy quarterbacks. Over the years, we've seen a ton of them, right? Who they almost get better when everything breaks down. Michael Vick being number one.
Well, when we come back, I want to get Gries's prediction on this one. Plus, I want to look at a couple ways Miami's hot start, I think, is really helping in recruiting. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Guys, if you're trying to get to the top of your routine, hydration is an absolute must, whether it's workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-back classes. This is where Drip Drop comes in. When I'm on top of my hydration, I notice everything works better. My energy, my mood, my focus, even my skin. But getting enough fluids every day is not always easy. And that's why I've been loving Drip Drop. Drip Drop is doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. My go-to flavor is the cherry limeade. It's a game changer after a workout or after one of these busy days. I'm super busy during football season. Drip Drop helps me out so much. I always keep a few packets with me. It saved me more than once from that midday crash. Right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. Folks, it's almost the weekend, and it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For your Miami Hurricanes, I'll tell you who's on a streak. CJ Daniels has been delivering in a big way. 2 touchdown grabs last week after that season highlight touchdown grab, the one-hander against Notre Dame. When the pressure is on, CJ Daniels comes through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching him week after week, you know that performance against Bethune certainly was not a fluke. CJ Daniels is on himself a streak. And just like CJ Daniels delivered for the Hurricanes, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save on every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season. You can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period is through November 18th. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. Make sure right after the game on Locked On Canes YouTube and on the audio channels, you check out our guy Gries, who's going to be delivering the immediate post-cast reaction to USF at Miami. And something, Gries, as obviously Miami's off to a hot start, and we hope they finish the season as strong as they started it, unlike last year. And it's going to make a difference in recruiting. A couple of quick notes. So Samuorian Wingo is a class of 2026 receiver who's been committed to Miami since the summer. There was a little concern with Miami fans because he was taking some visits still, but he has shut down his recruitment, and Wingo, who I think is a really good player, is locking in his Miami commitment. And you know what may have sealed the deal, Gries? He was at the Swamp last weekend to watch whatever that was Florida was doing against USF. And
it
then
was
after
a swamp.
After that visit to Florida,
named.
after that visit to Florida, Wingo's like, all right, I'm good. I'm locking it in with Miami. So listen, to that effect,
these girls don't have teeth up here. What's going on?
So hopefully Miami, shows Wingo a better show and a better performance this week and moving forward. And there's another, I go back to what you were saying about Carson Beck's experience. So Miami is also recruiting receivers out of high school with a lot of experience. It seems like the top quarterback target for the class of 2027, because remember, we have Darian Coleman locked in for 2026 out of Jones and Orlando. But for class of 2027, the guy Miami seems to really want is a quarterback out of Alabaster, Alabama, from I think it's Thompson High School there. And I've actually I've got I don't know that much about Alabama high school football. I do have a couple of listeners who live in that area who have told me this young man, Trent Seaborn,
the reach of Alex Donno.
The reach, we're nationwide, we're worldwide sometimes.
Locked on.
Shout out to, I know we got this guy Canes across the pond who tunes in from the UK. So shout out to you as well. But the people in Alabama tell me this 2027 quarterback, Trent Seaborn, who's going to be at the game this weekend. So let's put on a show for Seaborn visiting. Not only is he a really good player, Gries, but he has been a varsity starter since 8th grade. He's in 11th grade now. He started on the varsity as an 8th grader and led his high school to a Class 7A championship as an 8th grader playing varsity ball. So he's now, I guess, in his 4th year as a starting quarterback. He'll be a senior next year, year 5. So, and again, this player has not committed to Miami, at least not yet. This seems to be Miami's top quarterback target. But if you can get this guy in your class of 2027, he's going to come in with about as much high school experience as a quarterback can possibly get.
Can't you see him in the Heisman finalist room? He's from Alabaster, Alabama.
Yeah.
He's been starting since 8th grade. Oh, man, it's crazy what these kids are capable of these days. Imagine being in that locker room like, none of you quarterbacks are cutting it. We're bringing up the kid. And they bring the kid in from 8th grade, and oh, my God, all the other quarterbacks become either running backs or receivers or something. And, it's just interesting. And props to those other kids that they can step aside and let him come in and lead the team and accept their new roles. But what an unbelievable thing recruiting is it not? I mean, wow. And just real quick, I want to say something about Mario Cristobal, if I may. Unprovoked, you didn't even ask me, but obviously the recruiting is as good as it gets at Miami right now. And I don't think anybody's going to argue that. The in-game stuff, the team's prepared, man. Their offense is prepared. Their defense is prepared. And two things that really stand out to me about this team, and I'm going to hit you with one thing negative at the end because everybody's going to go, Gries, he still can't manage the clock. Okay, we're going to get there. But everything else, Alex, they're not committing penalties at all. They haven't turned the ball over. I mean, they're doing everything. We haven't seen the huge big plays like special teams defense. We saw the interception in the end zone. But, I'm waiting for some big game breakers on special teams and defense, more turnovers. But as far as the way that this team has shown up this season, aside from the way Mario calls timeouts, which still drives me crazy, but the way that this team has shown up this season, then you throw in the recruiting, you getting anybody better? You got anybody better that you want to bring in for all the people who still rip Mario? And, he still does things once in a while during a game when you're going, we're only going to have one timeout left and there's 7 minutes left in the third quarter. I mean, it happens. But so far, I have to give the man his props and the coaching staff their props.
100%. And hopefully they make a good impression on Trent Seaborn, who I'd love to learn more about his journey because even though he's in Alabama, He's got Pacific Island roots, and he's got a connection to the Tango Vailoa family. I think too, his dad is his trainer. So there's also like an indirect, not Miami Hurricanes, but like a city of Miami connection for him. So I wonder if that ends
That's
up.
my other postcast, Alex. We don't want to talk about that game. We don't want to talk about that.
Oh
that
my
team
god! Yeah,
right
I'm so sorry.
turnover.
You also and we're in the same boat because it's funny. So like you're doing postcasts for both the Hurricanes and the Dolphins. I've been doing post game on radio for both. I'm not the full-time Dolphins guy, but they needed me to do the first 2 games on radio last week. Great for the Canes. For the Dolphins, not so much, man. So I'm sorry. All right, so real quick, Gries. I've said it a couple times this week. I'm going Miami 31, USF 17. What's your prediction for Saturday, and what score do you think you'll be breaking down afterwards on the postcast?
I think it's going to be worse than last year. Last year was what, 50-15 up there. I mean, and people talked a lot about that game going in. I remember it was early. It was a night game, if I remember, but people were thinking, oh, Miami's going to have trouble against this team. And it was close for a while, right? Cam Ward broke it open late like he always did, and a lot of points piled on. So maybe that 50-15 was a little tiny bit deceiving, but I don't think their defense is going to even present much of a speed bump to the Miami offense. It might be one, those speed bumps where you go 5 miles an hour and it feels like your whole car just completely fell apart in the parking lot.
Yeah.
That's not what's going to happen this week for the Miami offense against the USF defense. It's going to be one of those ones that's been there in a parking lot for 60 years and you can go like 60 over it and not even feel it. I feel like that's going to be the case. You got running backs everywhere, receivers who are rated tops in the country. You got Carson Beck, who's basically an NFL quarterback right now, pulling the strings. I don't see any reason Miami doesn't put up 50 in this game. I really don't. And I think I might be getting cocky, but it's good for you, America, when the Canes are great. Let's admit it. It's good for you, US of A, And by the way, on the week of 9/11, I just want to send condolences to everybody who was affected by that and those who lost their lives. But it is better for the USA, Alex, when the Miami Hurricanes are great. And it is better when Notre Dame and Florida State and those teams. So these next couple of weeks, getting through USF, getting through Florida, and the first road game of the year is against Florida State. So think about that. You get baptism by fire a little bit, some tough games early, but your first road game's there. So making it through, and it's always tough when it's in-state opponents. There's always a little bit extra oomph, a little bit extra, it's a harder hitting game, a little bit more emotion out there, more pride, things like that. So make it through these next couple of weeks, and I don't think they're going to have any problem with this one. I'm going to go, man, they might break 60. I'm going to say 55-13, Miami.
Wow. Man, well, I hope it plays out that way so I can kick my feet up in the third quarter at some point and just relax. Yeah, I think and just to I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because we spent a lot of time on it yesterday, but I think for me, if Miami defensively, if they can force enough third and longs to just completely screw up USF's tempo, then it's going to be a really long night for USF because they love the no huddle. They try to gas out the defense, not giving you time to make substitutions. But as our guest yesterday, Hollywood, pointed out, if you can force 3 and outs, then the tempo for USF is going to end up hurting their defense because then their defense is not going to get a chance to rest. So hopefully Miami can get those quick stops and force some 3 and out punts and really give USF's defense a hard time. Well, I always love catching up with the Postcast King. Make sure you follow Gries at Jim Gries _, on X, and check out the Postcast, and God bless America. And thank you for pointing out on this week, man, what, I will never forget that day in 2001. And I hope nobody forgets about that. We appreciate everyone making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We'll certainly have a lot of game day material coming in and out of Miami's game against USF. So we'll talk to you then on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.